Hey there, I'm Flinter and I will today be speaking about how you're going to get geared for raiding in BFA. When BFA launches the 14th of August, you will have about 3 weeks before the raid launches on normal and heroic together with Mythic Plus. This happened the 4th September for US and 5th September for EU. So because of this, we want to be as geared as possible so we can get into the new content and not struggle too much because we are lacking gear. I have on the screen made a list of ways to get gear, and I will try to go over them in necessary detail to make sure you understand how to best benefit from these. First up, we have World Quest and Web, which goes hand in hand. Then we will go over dungeons from normal to heroic and then to mythic. After that, we will go over artifact power and how you want to farm this to be allowed to use your Azerite gear and increase your item level on the neck. Then we have crafted gear, and at the end, BOE from World Drop. To put everything into perspective, I'm gonna put in some item levels on the screen to explain what we are aiming for. At first, as you hit level 120, you're most likely gonna be about item level 280 to 290. Mythic Zeros are then gonna drop about 340, where the highest item level obtainable before the release of the raid is gonna be 355 from drop and Titan Fortune. Later on, when the raid then get released, Ultra Normal is gonna drop 355 and Heroic is gonna drop 370. Therefore, our aim is to get as close as possible to 355 before the raid is released. The first thing you want to be doing is obviously hit level 120, which can be done without preparation in about 10 to 12 hours. I'll below link a few guides and spreadsheets explaining how the living process can be done a little bit faster. As soon as you hit level 120, you want to unlock World Quest, which works mostly like it did in Legion. You unlock World Quest by beating friendly with 3 factions you meet while leveling through zones of Cultiers and Sandalar. The 3 alliance factions are called Storm's Wake, Order of Embers and Proudmoore Admiralty, while the 3 horde factions are called Vuldanai, Talangis Expedition and Sandalar Empire. Beside this, you also want to do your war campaigns, where you're asked to set up food holes on the enemy's continents. There are 3 of these, and they can also be done while leveling. So by unlocking World Quest, we're now able to do World Quest on these 2 continents and start earning reputation with the 6 factions we have in BFA. By doing so, we can get different rewards like high item level from the vendors. Beside the faction we talked about earlier, there is what I would call a story faction. Horde have the Honorbound and Alliance have the 7th Legion, which is faction you will be doing your war campaigns with, and later unlock extra mythic dungeons by doing so. The last 2 factions are neutral factions and are called the Tutoran and Champion of Azeroth. Where Champion of Azeroth is the important one because by reaching friendly, honored, revered or exalted you will get a quest from Magni and Silvers, which will each earn you 15 item level on your neck. So by doing this you should be getting 60 item level on your neck by becoming exalted. Beside this, the Champion of Azeroth got a 355 item level Azerite piece at Exalted, which is the highest item level an Azerite piece can have before the release of the raid. All 6 factions also have a 320 cloak at Honored, but only the 5 other ones have a 335 epic item at Revered and a 350 item at Exalted, which are different from faction to faction. So, with the reward out of the way, let's talk about how you get this reputation. The trick to farming this rep is by the help of inscription, which have gotten a new thing called contracts. Using contract with a specific faction will give you extra rep with this faction every time you do a world quest of any kind. So, to be able to reach Exalted with at least the Champion of Azeroth and potentially 4 other factions minus Tutoran, you will want to do your emissaries every day and maybe even some extra world quest. It's strongly recommended to do all Champion of Azeroth world quest, because these obviously give rep, but also because of the AP reward, which we'll come back to later. I do not recommend trying to become exalted with the Tutoran because of their low amount of world quest, which most of all reassemble the Kirin Apostle quest from Legion. Beside this, I believe you can become exalted with the other faction with enough effort. So, with this out of the way, let's talk about the rewards by simply doing world quest in itself and the emissaries. Doing world quest works mostly like Legion, meaning you get around your own item level or a few item level above as gear reward. Beside this, world quest primarily gives rep, gold, artifact power and resources. On the right side of the screen there can be found a list of rough item level rewards, and below that a list of web rewards. This can also be found in my spreadsheet, which I have linked to in the description below the video. To make world quest hunting easier, I recommend using an add-on called World Quest List, which lists your world quest. You can here go in and sort the world quest by duration and see which one times out soon, and which one thereby needs to be done, to not lose out on gear, web and artifact power. Alright, with world quest out of the way, let's look at dungeons. As mentioned earlier, you will be about item level 280 as you reach level 120. I will on the screen show different item level rewards from dungeons and the requirement to sign up to them with the looking for group tool. As you can see on the requirement, it does not take much to get into heroic with the looking for group tool, but I still strongly recommend just skipping normal and instead finding a guild group and start with heroic. You should also be able to do mythic zeros at a low item level, but if you can, you might as well just get to about 320 at least if you're alone. A last thing that's worth mentioning is that mythic zeros have a weekly lockout, meaning you can only do each of them once. Besides this, 2 of the dungeons are mythic only dungeons and need to be unlocked by reputation. And with that we can move on to artifact power, where you'll get it and what it does. Artifact power can be obtained like in Legion, but we no longer get it like an item in our bag, and instead more like XP that we just automatically are given when we do stuff. In Legion we will get artifact power from world quests and dungeons, but with Battle for Azeroth we can now get artifact power from island expeditions. Island expeditions are small 3-man scenarios where you gather up AP and win by getting more AP than the enemy. This can be done against NPCs or against 3 other human players. When you then get AP, it is then consumed by your neck and allows you to unlock traits on your Azeroth gear. But like Legion, we will with every week have artifact knowledge that decrease the cost of the next artifact trait, helping people catch up if they start out late. Because of artifact knowledge, it should be possible to get to at least around 21 AP levels, which should unlock most of the pre-raid Azeroth traits. Next up we have crafted gear. With BFA, each crafting profession can craft 2 different 355 items for your item class type. This means that you can make 2 cloth items, you can make 2 leather items, you can make 2 mail items, or you can make 2 plate items. Beside this we have inscription. Inscription can make trinkets like in past expansions, which is also item level 355. This all means you should be able to get 355 items before the raid release, but do notice that the recipe for non-trinket items require 15 hydrocore, which are soulbind and drops from the end boss of mythic dungeons, meaning you can at max craft 2 because there is 10 bosses per week and you have 3 weeks. On top of this limitation, you also need to notice that, like in Legion, the items have random secondary stats, meaning you could have a lot of crit or no crit at all. At last, I would like to say that a Dark Moon trinket made by the inscription can be made purely by normal materials and a rare material called Impulsium. Impulsium are a bit like Blood of Sargeras, but way more rare, and you get it primarily from Gathering Profession or the Scrapper. Scrapping gear works in many ways like obliterating crafted gear Legion did. You take an item, which can be literally any kind of green, blue or purple gear from BFA content, and you then put it into the scrapper. But instead of obliterate, you now get crafting materials back, like Impulsium. At last, we have world beauties to talk about. This is, as far as I know, not confirmed, but it seems to be a trinket, a weapon, or 4 different pieces of gear that can drop as world drop for your class. On the screen you should be able to right now see some of these items found from Wowhead. The suggestion here is simply to try and keep an eye on the auction house and see if you can buy some of these as cheap as possible. Because world drop does mean low drop chance, you might not be able to see any of these drop in the real world while you quest. So with all the sources of loot out of the way, let's talk about how you want to do it. As we reach level 120 and you have instantly unlocked your world quest, you should either craft your reputation contract or buy it off the auction house. As this is done, you should then look at your world map and figure out what world quest you need to do now. to make sure none of the world quests times out and to get your first emissary done. Keep in mind you get new emissaries every day, so you need to make sure you don't lose any of these. Please notice your rep before and after all this, because you can buy gear as you reach new checkpoints in your reputation. This means honored, withered and exalted. You should obviously also be mining, herbing and skinning while doing your world quest to get resources so you can craft stuff later on. When you're done with world quest and you know none of them is gonna time out again anytime soon, you can now grab a group of friends and start running some heroic dungeons for gear. While doing this, check the time between each heroic to make sure you don't have any world quest timing out soon. As you guys start getting a little bit geared, you can start looking into mythic dungeons, but keep in mind these might be a bit rough with low item level. It can be done, but I suggest item level 320 if possible to make it smoother. No rush to do them the first day necessarily. You have the whole week before they reset. As you start actually being a bit geared and there's no world quest needing to be dealt with, you can start looking at doing your weekly island expedition. It might have changed, but it used to take 7 heroic island expeditions to complete this weekly quest, and it will then reward you 2,500 artifact power and about 1,500 reputation with either 7 legion for the alliance or the honor bound for the horde. Before the first week is done, you want to hopefully be withered with the 7 legion or the honor bound, so you can do your war campaign with them to unlock the last mythic only dungeon. As you then reach the second week, you want to keep doing your world quest while doing your 10 mythic dungeons, your weekly island expedition, and then with your remaining time farm heroic dungeons for potential Titan Force upgrades or farm island expedition for extra AP. But the one new thing you can now do is you can craft your first piece of 355 crafted gear, because you should, with all these mythic dungeons done, now have 20 hidden cores, where it should allow you to craft one for 15 hidden cores, and then craft a second item the third week. The third week then work exactly like the 2 previous one, but you now want to just use all your remaining time on farming artifact power, so you're ready to enter the raid in the 4th week. While you do all this over these 3 weeks, you want to keep an eye out for BOE world drops and the auction house for cheap BOEs worth buying. I believe this should be everything. If you're interested in more info, you can find me on my Discord, which can be found in the description below, or you can leave a comment and I'll try to answer it if I can. I would also be happy about feedback, as this is my first proper video and I know my accent and pronunciation of words can be kinda rough sometimes. With that said, thank you for now, and I hope to see you in Battle for Azeroth.